407 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal.
Well, it's an interesting concept. Was Lincoln a reluctant abolitionist? Did he have some latent racism, which he ultimately overcame? Or, on the other hand, was he as principled as some of his defenders allege? I find it impossible to conclude anything other than that Lincoln was solidly anti-slavery. Moreover, not merely anti-slavery as a matter of taste, but in principle a solid defender of liberty, and meaning that he thought the slaves should be free, even contemplating their citizenship. But what causes our confusion is that Lincoln lived in the world of politics. He lived in Illinois, a state that had a constitution which said there shall be no slavery and no black people shall come into this state. It was not the only such state. Oregon came into the Union with the same kind of constitution. Free Oregon, no blacks admitted. Abraham Lincoln campaigning was dealing with people who had not made the commitment to assimilation, who had not made the commitment to citizenship, even when they were committed to anti-slavery as a matter of principle. And hence, he had to speak in the campaign in ways that would allow him not to offend that side on the racial side of the question, while still defending the principle, the moral side of the question. He would be routinely accused by his opponent, Senator Douglas, as being a nigger lover. He'd be accused of wanting to marry a black woman. And he had to respond to these things in a community that was sensitive to these things. And so a lot of these responses have been taken by people as if they were expressions of racism on Lincoln's part. Well, they couldn't be more wrong.
It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus so far nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain.
What Lincoln did is walk carefully around questions that were extraordinarily divisive and that were not yet ready for resolution in the community. But could they be resolved step by step if you took the appropriate political moves? If, as Lincoln did, you challenged the expansion of slavery? If you insisted that the Union was more important? If you resisted secession? If, in the end, you even emancipated slaves in order to save the Union? Would you not contribute at length to confronting the reality that one day we will have to answer the question of race, the question of assimilation? Now, if one looks at it that way, one cannot help, it seems to me, but conclude that what Lincoln did was the statesmanlike thing to do to bring the country to the point where it could not only answer the question about slavery and its immorality, but it could also answer the question about race and assimilation. I believe that is what happened.
That this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth.